with Investing Education Academy. You have myself, Brent Simpson, and the co-founder of Investing Education Academy, Leon Noble. Today we're going to be talking about Nvidia. Some of you all have been part of this bull run inside of Nvidia, and some of you all haven't. Now, only thing we can say is that we've been talking about this stock for like 2 years. And if you have been in it the last 6 months, your portfolio probably would have that potential one stock in your portfolio could possibly have outperformed your entire portfolio. So, Leon's going to tell you why we chose it. I'm going to do what I always do, a little bit of housekeeping, but I implore you, listen to what he's about to say. If you have friends who have been thinking maybe not, they should listen to this. This is not stock advice to you directly. This is just general conversation about a stock in the grand scheme of the stock market that we think should have some attention paid to it. So, Leon, you can tell them why we chose it. I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping.
Yeah, so like Brent said, if you're involved in the market, you've known about Nvidia for the past year because the stock was up.
Or you should have known.
Should have known. Yep, there you go. Should have known. Not saying no absolutes. You should have known. High probability you did know, but you should have known. If you known about Nvidia for the past year, the stock was up over 200% last year. I think this year it's up 60, 70, 80% already. So it's been a wild ride, right? So that's one thing. Nvidia has been just crushing the market, but what they're bringing to market right now. I mean, the reason they're crushing the market is the chips they're providing are the power behind this whole AI boom. And literally 90. I mean, they have like over 90% market share for these what are called accelerators for AI. They own the space right now. There's like generally no competition. The only real competition right now is AMD. Their chip is just now starting to roll out. It's not really out there yet. There's some other smaller startups that have some, but Nvidia is just dominating.
And I think I think Taiwan Semiconductor should get a shout out.
Well, yes, Taiwan Semiconductor they produce all these chips. Well, the majority of these chips. They produce, I think, 90+% of the advanced chips in the world. And I think they produce like 60% of chips globally. Just all chips in general. I mean, they are just a behemoth. But Nvidia, so yeah, Taiwan Semiconductor, ticker symbol TSM, definitely needs a shout out. But Nvidia, so right now this whole AI thing, we know it's hype. It's a hype cycle. It reminds a lot of us who've been around for a couple of years. Remember the .com boom in the 90s. Everyone's trying to compare it to that. Big difference though is that back then there were no profits. There weren't even, in some cases, weren't even customers. There weren't even business models. People just had a website and said what they're going to do in the future. literally. Vern remembers, like we were around. We were investing in those markets. It was crazy. But what's going on right now with Nvidia's the revenue and profits coming out of this current hype cycle are real. Nvidia's crazy thing is Nvidia's profits from the first quarter of this year relative to the first quarter of last year, revenue was up 270% year over year. That doesn't happen generally. I mean, you may get 20%, 30%, 50% is really high. 200 over more than doubling your revenue quarter over quarter over a year. I mean, these are things we haven't seen in the market really ever. And their profits have averaged, I think, 40, 50% year over year, quarter over quarter, the last couple of years. So Nvidia is just absolutely killing it. But I mean, a lot of us know that, right? So I mean, like I said, if you've been following this thing, you kind of know about that. But so that's one thing. So Nvidia had and here's another crazy thing. Nvidia had their let me say this clearly. Their developers conference 2 days ago. Developers, these are people that write code, right? Generally not the general population. Very smart, very intelligent people. I try not to say it, but very smart, very intelligent people that attend these things, right? And they're really, really into what they do. Well, these developers conferences generally have a few hundred, maybe a few thousand people. Check this out. NVIDIA's conference was at the S&P Center in San Francisco 2 days ago. I don't know anything about this S&P Center, SAP Center in San Francisco. I'm not familiar with it, but it's like a basketball stadium, right? This thing sold out in, I think, a day and a half, 2 days. That place seats over 17,500 people. 17,500 people. A developers conference. hosted by Nvidia, sold out a basketball stadium in a day and a half or so. That's one thing. So that again, something we never seen before. Another thing is you had celebrities there. Nas was there, Pharrell was there, Ashton Kutcher was there, right? So again, this is the type of hype. It is a hype cycle, but there's actually real money behind this hype cycle. But the other thing I really want to point out was that's kind of the fluff. The thing I really want to point out was the companies that are not tech companies that were there. So I'm gonna read off a list. So it was some of them. These are just some of them, not all of them. Mercedes, Volvo, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Exxon, Lowe's, Ford, John Deere. Right. So these are traditional industrial heavy companies that have heavy assets that were there. Right. So you might think, why were these companies there? Well, what this shows is that this AI, again, quote unquote hype cycle, is actually real. You have industrial big name companies that are buying into this whole kind of the AI hype cycle, but they actually see real world production from this.
Yeah, I mean, Leon, let me jump. Mm-hmm. So you're probably gonna go into it, so I might be a little ahead. Most of these people have plants. You know, I think you can argue for any car company now, they're a tech company. Like almost any car company at this point. I mean, they all.
I'd say they're becoming, because remember they still make majority. Most of them still make majority gas powered
parts. Yeah.
But yes,
their computers in them are like next level now. Even in the gas powered cars.
Mm-hmm. But what they actually make
I agree. Yeah. But I'm simply saying, like, where we're moving to now, and this is the kind of conversation Leon and I always had, is the world, like any business. And I mean, I run a business consulting firm as my primary company, right? And I think the last 4 weeks I've spent time working on automation, how systems are talking to each other. And that's something I never thought I would have to spend so much time on as a physical entrepreneur, if you will. I mean, the landscape is changing by the second.
Yeah. And so like Brent said, he's now spending time on things that he never thought he would because of technology. And those companies I just rattled off that are not tech. I mean, we're talking about ExxonMobil, oil, Lowe's, retailer, Northrop Grumman, defense, Mercedes, Volvo, car. Like these are companies that have, and then John Deere. John Deere makes tractors, right? But they were all there. Why? Because they see this AI revolution. And remember, a lot of these, like kind of what Brent said, a lot of these companies are becoming tech companies. They have a lot of data, right? So I know, for instance, John Deere. Now we know that say they make tractors, right? What they're doing is they're actually turning their tractors into lack of a better term, EVs, right? So these tractors, and they actually have some prototypes out now.
Automated,
automated. Yeah, the tractors actually plowing the fields autonomously. Nobody's driving them. It's all done. It's all done via like satellites and things like that. So and again, they need a lot of data from that. They need the technology to process all that. Again, the Nvidia chips, and then the AI on the back end to then process all the data and see the most efficient way to plow, where to go, maybe where to plant, things like that. So you have all these industrial old line companies that are morphing into tech companies in some ways, but they see the huge value in what this whole AI revolution is and what Nvidia is producing. So I bring all this up to say, don't think this AI hype cycle is just going to be tech companies. It's much broader than that. Like right now, my personal portfolio is majority tech. I mean, it's like, I don't know, 40% tech. That's more than that. It's like
what? You're 40% tech?
No, yeah. Actually, it's more than that. I think it's like maybe it's between 40 and 60% tech. But
that's news for me. Like,
well, it's tech, but it's diversified. So there's semiconductors, there's software. So it's not just one thing. But yes, it's mostly tech. But my second biggest industry, industry is industrials. Things like I just named, Northrop Grumman, Mercedes, like big old line companies. If you look at a chart of the ticker symbol is XL, I think it's XLI, which is the industrial ETF. That thing looks like a tech stock. It's an ETF of a bunch of industrial stocks, but it looks like a tech stock, right? I mean, the chart goes like this because industrials now are adopting all of these new technologies. They're seeing productivity, and in the years to come, I'm just going to verify that XLI ticker symbol. But in years to come, they're gonna benefit hugely from
And
Yeah,
so why are you looking that up? I just want to
mm,
say you got to think about this. All these quote old line companies, they all have supply chain concerns that probably account for over 20% of their revenue or business. BOE is business overhead expenses are going to go down as a result of the AI that they're integrating into their systems. Also, too, efficiencies in the supply chain are going to increase because of AI. And these, you talk, even you look at John Deere, for instance. John Deere produces tractors and really heavy excavating equipment from here to like Japan.
the world. Yeah.
When when I was in Morocco, I like walked by one place. It was a John Deere tractor in the field. I was like, oh, okay. And then you take us from there in Thailand. I saw a John Deere mower at one of the when we were going out into the countryside. So these are companies that have to ship and actually track goods across the world. So supply chain is huge for them, and that all boils down to they're really communication companies because when you look at how they're moving these items, who they're talking to, who's the check, where are the checkpoints, how do you confirm how much of the goods actually made it to a place? Because some of you all may not know this either. When you start talking about shipping containers and these large Panamax ships, they sometimes lose like hundreds of containers at sea.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have to, when they dock, they have to check what was lost, what wasn't lost. These storms that you see on TV and movies are very real. So they're always communicating. And the better the communication becomes, and then autonomously, when we get things docked now, where it used to be like a person driving a crane, it's all autonomous machines moving these major, like hugely heavy containers from one place to another. So during the process of them moving them down, they're also scanning them. That used to not happen. There used to be a person walking around with a clipboard, like writing down what was in, and then you had the dock master who would randomly just cut open a lock to a container and physically check. Now they're just scanning everything.
And,
Barcodes run the world.
and all of that is data. All that is data. And that data needs to be processed by these a lot of data is going to be processed in the future by these Nvidia chips. And then of course AI is going to be behind it to then determine what to do the best way to increase productivity. But to go back to what I was saying, so XLI, the ETF that tracks industrial stocks, over the last 12 months, it's up let's say 27%, where the S&P 500 is up 30%. So these old line companies that are supposed to be slow and dodgy are keeping pace with the S&P 500 that tracks the biggest, baddest companies in the world. The S&P 500 is always our benchmark. And just go a little further, the tech ETF, which is that ticker symbol is XLK. Over the last 12 months, that's up. That's up 40%. Where again, the XLI is up, let's say 27%. So, about 10 to 12 percentage points off of where tech stocks are. Industrial stocks don't typically track tech. I mean, they're usually, way behind. If tech is up 20%, industrials may be up like 5%. So they're keeping pace with a lot of tech stocks because they're adopting a lot of this technology, and everyone in the future is betting on that they're going to see huge gains in productivity, which translate into huge gains in profits.
And real quick now, to give you all numbers. Now, we are not saying, number one, this is not advice to you particularly. We're just making statements about the market. And what I'm about to say isn't to say that this is going to continue to grow at this pace. But the adoption right now in the tech space is kind of slow. Because when we're talking about Nvidia, when we started this, they haven't even been able to deliver the entire demand that is being requested. So you got to think there are companies out here that are chip deprived right now. So the thoughts that the technologies and the systems they want to create, the experiments that they want to do, they haven't been able to do yet. So once delivery gets back up to, let's say they're 80% complete on deliveries and so forth, you're going to see even a faster acceleration of technology. So when you look at these stocks, I'm not saying it's going to continue a 27% growth rate or any growth rate. We're not saying that. But because it is, let's just assume. Let's just play a game. Let's say it that way. Your money is going to double roughly every 3 years at 20 roughly at 27%. Every 3 years. Even if it just doubled one time. let's just say it's just a run for a 3-year run for this, and that's it. That means in the next 3 years, if you put 250,000 in, you're sitting on $500,000. If you put $500,000 in, you're sitting on $1 million. If you put $1 million in, you're sitting on $2 million. Why does that matter? Because then you take those profits, you take those gains, and you start investing in things that are the boring investments. They give you slow growth, that become stable, and then you let a little bit of it ride. And that's when you start creating multi-generational wealth. Like you start getting the, whole life insurance policies. I know some of you IUL people out there going, IULs. But, just talking about traditional whole life insurance, and VUL people, didn't forget about you. But it's those things. Then you start looking at the bonds, the treasuries. What are some junk bonds? Junk bonds right now are like in the 10% range. So, well, corporate bonds, I'm sorry, in case you don't know. Corporate bonds are also considered junk bonds. But, when you start looking at these things, that's where you move some money to, because it's not as aggressive and you kind of hold that position to have some growth. Diversification becomes very important. But this is that time where if you are making gains, don't just keep betting on red. Just betting on red, like double down, because we know there's some of those people out there, and a pullback in these industries. I mean, a 10-day pullback can be a 30% pullback and can really hurt you. So for some of you all, even out there who are, making, 10% per year, don't think, okay, let me go chase the 27 now. 10% is still really good.
Yes.
I mean, you're talking about every 7.2 years, your money's double. So, don't get discouraged. Think, okay, because they said that's at 27, this is at 40. Let me go chase the fastest pony on the track. No, diversify your portfolio. I will say, just Brent's advice, because I don't want to speak for Leon. I think almost anybody who has some discretionary funds available should be invested in Nvidia, AMD, and Taiwan Semiconductor. A little bit across each. If you want to diversify a specific way, you should join IEA and we can discuss it in the portal. But for those of y'all know, really, like it's some great conversations happening inside it. Investing Education Academy's community. And if you want, you can go to IEAmembers.com, become a member. And that is normally we do that at the end, but I'm doing it now because these conversations are where millions get made. We have made millionaires. Like we're not just talking about it. And in addition to that, we've seen people who were scared stand on the sideline thinking, like 4 years from now, I could have possibly paid off my house. And that's a very real thing, like extremely real thing, to pay off your house in 2 years versus 30. Mm-hmm. Now you're choosing what schools your kids go to. Now you're choosing how you vacation. It's not just about the hustle of it or the adrenaline rush from picking the stocks. We truly do this because we want you all to have a mindset shift as it relates to how you manage your money. There's so many other groups who manage their money in ways that we can't even imagine. We need to catch up on some level. And it's just general statement. I'm off my soapbox. Leon, thank you for giving me the floor.
And just real quick, take it back to Nvidia. So what Brent said earlier was true. Nvidia cannot meet the demand right now for the chips that they're producing. It's so lack of a term, dire. I mean, dire in like not a catastrophic way, but for the company that they're literally having to pick and choose who they sell the chips to. Like it's basically like a queue. They have like a line set up, and they're allocating and picking and choosing. Okay, Amazon gets a little here, Facebook gets a little there. John Deere gets a little here, like because they can't meet demand. And the companies are literally standing in line, like, just think of like a queue and waiting for these chips to come out. That's how huge demand is for these chips. Last point on this is that, so an example of the benefit of these chips. So there's a company called Klarna, Clarna, Klarna. They're a, what's the word? A buy now, pay later company.
Yeah.
They actually came out.
Amazon used to work with them a lot. You're starting to see them pop up on like Zappos and some of these places where the heavier retailers offer it because it gives people the opportunity to, essentially it's a layaway plan, but it's digital. Yeah. It's like for you all who are like
for the OGs out there.
I say 35 plus, you know what a layaway plan looks like. And so it's a layaway plan for like anything.
Right. So for the younger cats, yeah, it basically lets you split your payments up, typically interest free. So if you buy something for $100 on Amazon, you better pay for it in installments of $25 a week or $20 a month, whatever, for the next couple weeks, a couple months. Most of them are interest free. Some of them do charge interest, so it's almost like a credit card on account. But because that's what Klarna does. They came out the other day and said the AI that they implemented with using in conjunction with ChatGPT is doing the work of 700 people. So what that means is there were seven, and then I mean, and let's get into a whole other debate about employment, income. We're not going down that road right now, but we're just talking about productivity. So there were literally 700 people that they did not have to hire because AI is doing that, which is in that money that they're not paying that staff is not going to drop to their bottom line, which is increased productivity, which is increased revenue and typically increased profits. So that's what that I mean. That's a real world tangible example of what this AI is doing right now, and which will do even more so in the future.
Yeah. So I mean, really, that's what we want to bring to you all today is to make you aware of Nvidia and what's happening in this chip space. So we owe you all 2 stock picks. You all can go to www.ieamembers.com and make kind of find out what our 2 stock picks are. You can also check the list of our the running stock picks that we've made over the years. It is actually fun to look at, even for me. So with that being said, Leon, you got anything before we go?
Just to diversify your AI holdings. Everyone's jumping into the big boys: Microsoft, Apple, AMD, Nvidia. Not saying you shouldn't own those; you should. But a lot of this is starting to broaden out into other companies like a name: Mercedes, Volvo, Lockheed Martin. Not saying those stocks in particular, but just in those industries. This AI thing is going to spread out more, add productivity, and then ultimately add profits to these companies' bottom line. So look at other companies outside of just tech for this AI hype cycle. Boom, whatever you want to call it.
Everybody, thank you for being with us. We'll see you in 2 weeks. And of course, if you have anything you would like for Leon or I to discuss, you can go to Investing Education Academy's Facebook group. And in that Facebook group, you can make a request. So if it's something you want to hear about, or you want to tell us, like, can you all touch on this? Or you have a question, put it in the group. We'll do our best to get to it. And definitely tell people about us. We look forward to seeing you all in 2 weeks. Have a great day.